Yeah, my name is Jim Colvin. I'm a holistic therapist and personal coach. I've been doing this for 28 years.
Dr. Colvin, speak a little bit about and explain, if you will, the mantra that you have developed to describe what you do to help people heal themselves.
I've developed a tagline that I think covers both the early days and current. Even though I came up with this line maybe a year or two ago, but it's transforming pain into wisdom and conflict into connection. So I work with people who come through the door usually with some kind of pain or conflict that they're going through, but try to help that become transformed into something that's actually newer and deeper and greater than they could have imagined. It's hard for people to think, hey, this is a great opportunity when they're hurting, but it is actually an opportunity, and I'm there to help people go through the process, go through the pain, and really come out on the other side glad they've come through the door.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and take us through some of the experiences that you've been through that have shaped who you are today.
Well, I'm an ordained minister and a pastoral counselor and a marriage and family therapist now. I got there the hard way, the way Jung always says, some can walk to our fate, most of us have to be dragged there. So I went through a time of difficulty 35 years ago, something like that, having to get out of a marriage that was not good, and later met my current wife, who we've been married 33 years this year, I think, something like that. So I had to walk the walk before I could talk the talk, as it were. But really loved counseling and getting into the psyche and the soul, and for myself, and to help people discover themselves. So that's the short answer. I'd already at that point been an ordained minister, but went into clinical training, did a 4-year residency in New York City, and got a certificate in pastoral psychotherapy. So that's how I sort of got into the whole thing.
What are some of the advantages to owning your own practice, being your own boss?
Advantages, yeah. Well, a quote advantages, you get to meet people, you get to help people and empower them in their lives. I don't know if that's an advantage. It's not an economic advantage per se, but it's a satisfying payback that you get in the field. Advantages, I mean, I'm in my own practice and I have a lot of flexibility to do things like this, to work long distance by phone and Skype or in person. So I guess that's the kind of advantage.
How do you go about marketing yourself and your business?
Number of different ways. Of course, I have a website, and I have a great networking group called BNI that I meet with every week, and that's a great marketing tool. A little bit of advertising. I've been voted best therapist in Western North Carolina by Mountain Express the last 2 years, so I get to advertise that in the local paper as well as on my website, and working through Empire Radio.
How far does your practice reach? And do you think your marketing is working?
More local, but I've worked with people from Florida, from New Jersey, from Massachusetts, from Michigan. People call me sometimes. It's always interesting to see where someone's calling from, and it works pretty well that way.
How important has the development of technology been in your particular industry?
Well, I've already said pretty much about it. I mean, technology is, some of my colleagues are totally against technology. You just have to have someone come into the office, you do anything else and it's not good. But the folks who I admire are a little more flexible than that. I mean, I don't worship technology, but I use it. I mean, if you can do an iPhone FaceTime, do it with someone who's 500 miles away. Or if you can do a Skype, because there's a lot of connection that can come electronically. It's not quite the same as being in the room, but it's 90%, I say. It's 90% because I feel deep connections to the people I have long distance, and I think they feel the same for me. So technology can actually bring people together.
Dr. Colvin, with that being said, how do you connect with your clients on a personal level without even being in the same room?
You just listen closely. I mean, a textbook example is a guy I'm working with now. I worked with him 10 or 15 years ago for a while, and I said, I just heard the energy change in your voice when you talked about doing something different. And that like changed his life, because he was able to focus on a whole different part of his profession that I just heard him feel so happy about it. And I don't think he quite saw it, so he needed me to reflect it back. But when I said it, bam, he just lit up on the phone. It was. And he still refers to it to this day. He said, remember when you said that? He said, I was able to take my life in a whole different direction. So you just have to listen and pay attention. And so that for me is a textbook example.
Is there anyone or anything that you refer to for help
I have, as far as the techniques and delivery of pastoral counseling, I have a group called the Partnership for Pastoral Counseling. It's about 13 of us who meet pretty regularly, and there are one or two colleagues in there I consult with a little more on what they're doing, and if I haven't heard of a certain approach or book or seminar, I'm able to get in that way, and that's been really helpful, really helpful. As far as marketing, my networking group has all different professions in it, and which is really cool, so I get to hear what they're doing. And they also keep me on my toes, because everybody in the group seems to be sort of cutting edge, and I say, I got to be cutting edge too, so I have to stay on my toes.
What are some of the concerns or precautions that you have to deal with when working with a client, and how do you overcome these issues?
One of the real concerns in my business is confidentiality. How do you maintain an ethical boundary for everybody who comes through the door? I always have to give a full disclosure that if there's any situation that relate to child abuse or domestic violence or homicidal or suicidal thoughts, that those are exceptions to that boundary, and well, just about everyone gets that coming through the door, but it has to be said.
What are some of the concerns or precautions that you have to deal with when working with a client, and how do you overcome these issues?
Well, one way to overcome an ethical problem is to make a baseline when someone comes through the door, so they know what the situation is, and if it comes up, I can say, well, you know, as I said 2 weeks ago or a month ago, when the issue of child abuse comes up, I have to report it. I'm obligated. In fact, I'd be in trouble if I didn't. So I refer to that. It's just having a baseline is the main thing. And that usually solves any issues, right? I mean, 99% of the time that takes care of it.
Dr. Colvin, can you please just quickly describe the services that you provide to the public?
Two main services I offer are individual counseling and marriage and family counseling, and long distance coaching. I mean, I kind of wrap those all together. And as a holistic practitioner, one of the things I offer people locally, I do Reiki sometimes with people and talk about energy if they're interested in that sort of thing. As a pastoral counselor, I can also talk about religious topics and spiritual topics, and which are important to me. I don't kind of come in leading with that, but if that's important to someone, I can certainly understand where they're coming from and try to help them work on a healthy, caring, liberating kind of spirituality. And with couples, I offer ways of each party looking at themselves and also looking at their partner. Sometimes in marriage counseling, it's just they say it's a matter of communication. I say, yeah, we need to communicate, but we have to look at the two entities doing the communicating, and that's an important piece. It's a hugely important piece that it can get overlooked.
And to what do you attribute your success?
Yeah, well, a lot of my success to the background that I was given as a therapist. I went to a 4-year residency in which I had to be in individual therapy and group therapy for 4 years while seeing clients, while writing papers, while taking courses. So it was a very comprehensive approach, and I was put through the bill individually. So I had to come through and deal with my own issues and conflicts. So I was fairly clear about myself, and someone who's clear about themselves has a decent chance of not putting all their stuff on clients. And I think I'm pretty good about separating that, and clients feel there's space for them. And when a client feels there's space, that's where good things can happen. And so I think my colleagues and other clergy and even my business colleagues can see and feel that.
Why Asheville, North Carolina?
Well, our son was going to college here at Warren Wilson, actually. He began at Warren Wilson. We were visiting here. The first day we fell in love with Asheville. And we have been thinking, that was 8 years ago, we thought probably every day for the next 5 years how we could get down here. And we finally moved 3 years ago. And we were very happy we did. We love the mountains, we love the people, we love the values. It's a community of heart. And I don't think we realized how much that was true. I mean, I get emotional thinking, I love this place. Love the heart. When I picked up the Mountain Express the first time, I said, look at this group that's doing this. Look at this group that's doing this. Look at this group. I was in tears. I mean, people doing horse training with vets as well as counseling and support for women and children and families. And there are just so many people here working to have healing in this broken world. And we need that. We really need that. I think we're grateful to be part of it. We have a church that's good that way, that really tries to include people and help people. And so we're not just individuals flailing around. I think we need community. And Asheville is a fabulous place to do that.
What is it that makes you unique or different from other therapists?
I think what sets me apart are really a couple things. One, I come in with a holistic approach, really trying to help people look at their mind, their body, and their spirit, and understand energy systems. I understand psychodynamic systems. I understand family systems, all of those things. And I also tell people I speak the language of energy and I speak the language of traditional religion. Because I've had background in all those areas, and very few operating therapists have that comprehensive a background, I think.
What have you learned from your experience down here in North Carolina?
How much I love Asheville. How much heart has to do with life. Because heart connections are the only ones that really matter, whether it's a love commitment, but also to the larger community. And Asheville's taught me that in ways I partially knew, but so I kind of reintegrated that by doing this interview.
The feeling that you refer to as a, quote, heart connection, how does that impact the way you approach your work?
I think it's at the core. I remind couples that they got married or committed because of a heart connection, not just a practical connection or someone who's beautiful or handsome or whatever. It was a connection of the heart. And I try to get people back to that. And also I help people heal their hearts, because a lot of wounds are loss and grief and pain from years ago. And it's really our heart energy that gets most wounded. I mean, our bodies might get it, or our minds or esteem, but when our hearts are heavy, we can't really move. And when the burdens of grief and pain are lifted out of the heart, our whole being rises. So I think that's really the case.
Yeah. What are your views on the importance of having faith in your life?
As far as faith goes, I believe the entire world, whatever faith someone has, or even not faith, it needs to be mature. I don't care if you're Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Baha'i or agnostic. There's a level of maturity that is needed. And by maturity, I mean a system, a view that is inclusive of all human beings, that is not judgmental, that does not condemn, that is trying to work for love and justice and peace in one way or another. And I think that's really, really important. And if folks aren't at that level, I try not to be judgmental myself, but try to help people evolve. For instance, I've had folks come in who may say something like, well, the Bible says being gay is a sin. But then they'll say, but yet, you know, my uncle has a child who's gay and he still accepts her. And so maybe there's a conflict here. And I say, yes, maybe there is. So I try to help folks go with their little cracks in their worldview to be more loving and more inclusive. So that's one little example, I think, of that.
Tell me how important family is to you and your wife, Sarah.
Well, that was just an example. The whole thing, family's been important to us because we got married. And I brought 2 kids into the marriage who I had full custody of them, and we had 3 more after that, so we raised 5 children together. And we've been strong partners for 33 years. And Sarah's got seminary training. She's a minister as well, and she and I have been sort of a team in a lot of respects through a couple different churches and raising a family. And it's been a great, wild, and worthwhile ride.
How have your experiences shaped your family's culture?
Well, as one of my friends, I guess she's quoting someone else, she said, we learned that life is brutal. It's brutal and beautiful, but mostly beautiful. But raising kids, anyone who has a kid knows that it's hard sometimes, and especially if you have stepchildren. There's some hard things about it, but there are also long-term rewarding things that are there. So I think we've learned that. And we've had other things we've had to contend with over those 3 decades and more, some hardships, but we've gotten through it because, well, we are totally committed to each other and love each other and like each other. And that has helped a lot, I think.
How does your family life affect your work when you deal with clients who may be in similar circumstances that you're in?
Well, I think on the one hand, it helps me to totally understand how there's conflict and difficulty and pain in a relationship. On the other hand, how by hanging in together and working on it, that pain can be transformed into a deeper connection. And it really can. The points of conflict in relationships can become ways of getting closer if they're worked with and if each party understands their component in the conflict. And that it actually can open up people's hearts.
You do a podcast with Empire Radio. Tell me, how does that podcast help your business?
Well, I think if someone wants to know more about my work and about themselves, they could go to my website, jamesccolvin.com, and listen to one of the podcasts. There are 10 or 12 podcasts where I've been interviewed on specific topics, sort of going more depth on probably most of the topics we talked about today. So there's a way people can find out a little more.
Dr. Colvin, why do you think people should come to you to seek therapy? Or just to seek therapy in general?
The reason, well, people can benefit by coming to me or being in touch with me is to process their part of whatever struggle they're going through. For instance, someone's going through a breakup or has gone through a breakup. I'm sure they have all kinds of feelings about the partner or the ex-partner, but it's important to look at yourself at that point so that it doesn't happen again, as it's likely that it will if you don't look at yourself. That's just an example. I mean, the same thing, couples can try to sweep things under the rug for days, weeks, months, and years. And that builds resentment. And it can be scary to go into counseling, but it's also painful sometimes not to go into counseling. So that there can be some way of resolving things. And there usually are. Sometimes people are too far gone when they come through the door. They've seen a lawyer and their arms are crossed and they're scowling, and that's about it. So I can't do much with that. So some people claim to be able to work with anyone. I need someone to have a degree of motivation. And it's worth being motivated because we can live a fuller life if our energies are available to us, if we can understand ourselves better. We can be happier as individuals and happier as people in families and partnerships.
When people come to you for advice about religion, what do you tell them?
Sometimes people come to me with religious questions, religious issues, and I do try to help folks make a distinction between a fear-based religion and a love-based religion, because it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world. And also means a fearful God or a loving God. And I try to help people see that God is a loving God, even though there is suffering in this world and difficulty and hardship, that God suffers with us rather than causing the suffering. And for some people that's a relief, for some people that's not a relief, but I believe that's the way it is. Because love wins out. Fear doesn't win out in our souls, and it doesn't win out for eternity. Love wins out. And I think that's at the core of most religions in one way or another. And I think that's an important point to come to, because it allows us to breathe easily and to feel okay about ourselves and to feel okay about other people.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a love-based religion and fear-based religion? And why is it important to distinguish between the two?
It's religions brainwash people. Religions that have wanted to control people, say, it's been developed out of fear, because if I'm in some religious authority and I get everyone scared, well, they have to come because they're so scared they're going to keep coming. And what a reason to be religious. It's hypocritical as far as and there are many, many, many religions that do that, or aspects of many religions, I should say. But there's also healthy religion. I don't know what you want to call it. Mature is what I call it. And there are healthy components in every religion, whether it's Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or whatever. There are very healthy components there that need to speak up and need to say we are love-based and we are community-based and we are not fear-based or hate-based. But my job as a therapist is to say, where do your beliefs come from? And beliefs need to come from the core of ourself. And I believe the core of ourself is where we connect with God. And if someone has warped that or twisted that to create other fearful parts, those parts need healing. And so our real authentic selves can come out. And I think that's how God, religion, and ourselves can work together.